So, doing something a little bit different tonight. It's the Wednesday before Christmas, and I have sort of a tradition. When I was about, I guess, 10, 11, 12 years old, we were going from where I went to school in a little town called Wawa, Ontario, Canada, the 70-mile drive to where I lived on a 3,600-acre lake, only place on the lake. We had a little resort. We did hunting, fishing, that sort of stuff. Interesting place to grow up, but a harsh place. If you didn't prepare and you didn't plan, you died. Maybe not the first winter, but the second. And people say, "What, Canada?" And I say, "No, Canada, 70 miles in the bush from the nearest town." You couldn't be lazy. You had to plan and you had to prepare, and that carried on into my life that I have now. I'm always prepared, I always have spare parts, I always have most everything that I need. Hurricanes, power outages, that sort of thing doesn't bother me a whole lot. Anyhow, so we were driving home from town, some cold, probably 20, 30 below Fahrenheit night. And we were listening to CBC Radio, which was Canadian Broadcasting Corporation in Canada. And there happened to play The Shepherd by Robert Forsyth, read by Alan Maitland. And it intrigued me, and it captivated me to hear it. And it's a story that's told so well that you feel like you're living it when you hear it. And anyhow, I hadn't thought about it in years, and a few years back when I was messing around on YouTube, guess what? I found it. I said, I wonder if it's on YouTube, and it was. So for the last several years, sometime before Christmas, I get out here in the shop by myself, and I wish my phone you could hear it and while I'm talking, but you can't do both at the same time. But I listen to it on the JBL charge over there, and I just sit here and I kind of tinker around, and I reminisce, and I think about, being a kid, living in Canada, and my parents, who are both passed on now. It would have been my mother's 82nd birthday today. But she passed away in my yard about 150 foot from where I'm standing in 2015. She was 75. But anyway, sometimes I think of it, I think I'm, what do I want to say, homesick. But more so than that, I think it's time sick. It's missing a place and a time and people that most of them don't exist anymore. Most of them are gone. And it's funny when you leave your home, like I did at 19 years old, and you don't go home much. A few days here and a few days there, sometimes years in between. Somehow in the back of your mind, you feel like things at home are just like they were when you left them. And they are not. They are much different. But that's just what it is. Anyway, so what I'm doing tonight, I bought this, what they call this a radial stacker. You pull it behind your pickup truck, you can flip these wheels sideways. There's a stand that goes underneath the back of it. and you put it underneath a screen or a crusher on. So on the crusher, you use it for the oversized rock instead of recirculating it. And it gets the material away from you so you can make a bigger pile and you don't have to keep moving. Anyway, so it comes with a cylinder, but when I bought this, I say new. I think it had been rented a time or two this year. And they had never hooked up any lines that I could see to the cylinder, so they were using a forklift or we were using an excavator to extend it. And so doing that kind of thing just increases the risk of, of damage. So it rained yesterday and it was still wet today, so I went and I got some lines and I ran the lines down here and I run them up through here and I put some bulkhead fittings here and brought them out here so that I can tie them into the hydraulics on the screen plant. And I can run this conveyor and also lift it up or down with the same hydraulic circuit that folds the belts in on the screener. Because tomorrow I'm going to move it and we're going to start screening some rock that's out there at Harbor Freight. We're going to separate out the 1.5 to 4 inch, and then anything more than 4 inch in the fabric and stuff. We're going to make a pile of the good material and make a video of it. But anyway, give me a little chance to go through this, and I found that this line wasn't hooked up in with my, so this bearing right here wasn't getting any grease, but I've got that fixed, and I got to put these panels back on. But oh, there's my finger in the way of the camera. This is an odd phone. But that's what I'm doing tonight. I'm listening to the shepherd and reminiscing and piddling around with this stacker, kind of getting it ready to go. And this is what I like to do. I like to work and I like to do things that people need me to do. But if I had my way, I'd mess in my shop all the time. And but you can't do it all the time because it doesn't pay enough, even if you're working on somebody else's stuff. So anyway, this is what I'm. Oh, it will work. You can hear it.
Somewhere beneath me, the Dutch border would be slipping away, and I had been airborne for 21 minutes. All well. The problem started 10 minutes out over the North Sea, and it started so quietly that it was several minutes before I realized I had one at all. The first warning I had was when I flicked a glance downward to check my course on the compass. Instead of being rock steady on 265 degrees, the needle was drifting lazily round the clock. I swore, a most unseasonal sentiment, against the compass and the instrument fitter who should have checked it. Still, it was not too serious. There was a standby compass, the alcohol kind. But when I glanced at it, the needle was swinging wildly too. Apparently something had jarred the case, which isn't uncommon. In any event, I could call up Lake and Heath in a few minutes, and they'd give me a GCA, ground control approach. The second-by-second instructions a well-equipped airfield can give a pilot even in cold in the worst of weathers. I glanced at my watch. 34 minutes airborne. Before trying Lake and Heath, the correct procedure would be to inform Channel D, to which I was tuned, of my little problem, so they could advise Lake and Heath that I was on my way without a compass. I pressed the transmit button, but instead of the lively crackle of static and the sharp sound of my own voice coming back into my own ears, there was a muffled murmur inside my oxygen mask. My own voice speaking and going nowhere. The radio was dead. Fighting down the rising sense of panic, I swallowed and slowly counted to 10. Then I switched to Channel F and tried to raise Lakenheath, but the steady whistle of my own jet engine behind me was my only answer. While I was vainly testing my radio channels, my eyes scanned the instrument panel in front of me. The instruments told their own message. It was no coincidence that the compass and the radio had failed together. Both worked off the aircraft's electrical circuits. Somewhere, beneath my feet, amid the miles of brightly colored wiring that make up the circuits, there had been a main fuse blow-up. The first thing to do in such a case, I remembered old Flight Sergeant Norris telling us, is to reduce throttle setting to give maximum flight endurance. We don't want to waste valuable fuel, do we, gentlemen? We might need it later, so we reduce the power setting from 10,000 revolutions per minute to 7,200. That way we will fly a little slower, but we will stay in the air rather long.
So there's a little snippet. There won't be no commercials on this video because that's somebody else's material, so I won't advertise, but that doesn't matter because I was just kind of wanting to share something with everybody, and it's just something different. It's just something that I do somewhere near Christmas. Every year I get out here and mess around and listen to the shepherd. And it never gets old to me. And I think about growing up in Canada in the winter, and I don't miss it. The year I left Canada in 1991, the high for the month of January was -20 Fahrenheit. And I like that I can work all year here, and I've got a lot of great friends in South Carolina, and I love the Palmetto State, and this is my home. But I still think a lot about the way that I was raised and how I was raised, and I have pretty vivid memories of Ontario and Canada and the North, and I would say hardships. I don't know. I think it made me who I am today. Again, if you didn't work and you didn't put up 100 truckloads of wood a year, you didn't survive. Again, not just Canada as a general, but just where we lived in Canada, the way that we lived. But anyway, I'll do a video tomorrow of the stacker hooked up and getting it going and seeing how everything works with it, and we will. I'm thinking it's going to work well. We're gonna. The oversize or the tailings, we're going to put a dump trailer that I have underneath it. When it gets full, we're going to haul it to the pit to put it in the crusher pile. And the stone from 1.5 to 4.5, I think I'm going to put one of the dump trucks under that belt. And because again, it'll make several loads of good, clean 1 inch or 1.5 minus material to every load of 1.5 to 4. And a lot to the tailings, the 4 inch plus. But I'm going to tinker with this a little bit more here tonight and make sure that everything's ready to go for tomorrow.